Everywhere you look, the rich history of the United Kingdom is there to be seen. But hidden beneath our feet, there's still a wealth of archaeological treasure just waiting to be found. That's why each year, up and down the country, our archaeologists dig down, searching for fresh discoveries.
Another one.
Revealing the imprint of ancient civilizations.
Yeah. So we are looking at a completely unknown Roman town.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And unearthing priceless objects.
Might be a pendant.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
Every dig adds new pieces to the ever-growing archaeological jigsaw
Gotta come and have a look.
that is the epic story of our islands. It's been an extraordinary year full of challenges, and yet I've been able to visit so many exciting digs up and down the country.
Oh my goodness.
There have been spine-tingling discoveries to witness.
That is the face of a Trojan.
Yes.
My heart is racing.
And I'm even getting a chance to use a trowel myself. I'm joined by a trio of expert investigators.
I can actually see the texture of the weave, and it's, what, 1,600 years old?
It's amazing that a small DNA sample like this can tell that really quite big story.
As they dig deeper for answers.
Same technique as the Romans used.
Exactly.
Finally, the archaeologists bring their best finds into the studio.
Whisk that away. You can see that this object has had a life of its own.
For up-close analysis.
It's astonishing detail. Welcome to Digging for Britain. This time, because there's so much fantastic archaeology to discover, we're heading back to the north of Britain.
Under a majestic town hall, a city's role in a new global era is unearthed.
The Industrial Revolution is arguably the most important event in human history.
And inspires a new generation of archaeologists.
Would you like to do it as a job?
Yes.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it?
Yes.
A Scottish fortress reveals ancient inhabitants with unexpected skills.
We think it might be a stylus.
Ooh, do we expect the Picts to be literate at this time?
Wow.
And a spectacular Bronze Age find shocks the experts.
I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I'm not going to likely to see one again.
Our first dig is 20 miles east of Carlisle in a small village called Gilsand. From George II to William the Conqueror, back through time, rulers have often struggled to control the rebellious north. And soon after their arrival in Britain, the Romans found they had the same problem. To shore up the empire's northern boundary, Emperor Hadrian came up with a 73-mile-long coast-to-coast solution.
I'm here on Hadrian's Wall, which has to be the most famous landmark in Roman Britain. It was started in 122 AD when the Emperor Hadrian said that he wanted to separate the civilized Roman Empire from the barbarians to the north, in his words. And these are perhaps the best preserved remains all along the wall. This is Birdoswald Roman Fort.
The fort is built into the very structure of Hadrian's Wall, and in its heyday it was home to around 1,000 Roman soldiers. Huge sections of the wall and fort are still visible today. But what we can see above ground is just the tip of the iceberg. Geophysical surveys reveal a huge settlement surrounding the fort and even stretching into the land north of the wall. This year, a team of archaeology students from the University of Newcastle are lucky enough to be digging here, just outside the fortress walls. They want to investigate the relationship between this settlement and the fort itself.
Oh, same.
And they've been recording their dig on one of our cameras.
This is the first of our dig diaries for Digging for Britain, the Alice Roberts show. So, behave, no language.
Finds from this trench have included a few Roman nails, some pottery.
I'm joining them to see what they think of the experience so far.
How much digging have you done before this?
What, before this trip?
Yeah.
None.
None? So
None.
This is
Yeah, it's my first
digging.
one, first experience, yeah.
Brilliant.
We found so many things already, literally all over the site. No matter where you dig, we're finding stuff anyway.
I found this earlier, tiny little glass blue bead.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Which was
Sure, that's
just
well
there.
spotted. So what's it like digging at a Roman fort on Hadrian's Wall?
A little bit daunting to begin with, but now it sort of just feels incredibly rewarding and an incredible privilege as well.
Also incredible is the double act of Roman expertise running this dig. Ian Haynes specialises in the archaeology of Roman frontiers, and Tony Wilmot has spent much of his career digging and studying Hadrian's Wall.
So tell me what we know about Hadrian's Wall and the forts and settlements along it, and tell me what we don't know.
It's salutary to remember that there are 15 words in classical literature concerning Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian was the first to build a wall 80 miles long to separate the Romans from the barbarians. That's it.
That's it, yeah.
Everything else we know comes from archaeology.
And that wasn't even a contemporary account either.
No, it wasn't. It was 200 years later. Yeah.
Parts of Burd Oswald were first excavated more than a century ago, and generations of archaeologists since have come to unearth more of its secrets. But there is still a lot to learn. Today, in the first major dig here for over a decade, Tony and Ian are investigating this mysterious area just outside the fort gates. This part of the site was last excavated by a giant of Roman archaeology, Sir Ian Richmond.
When was he digging?
1930.
Yeah.
They said in unison. And he came here, and there's one sentence that says, I came upon a good building, 20 feet square, with 3-foot wide walls going down 13 courses. And then he was flooded out and went home.
That's so
it. That's it.
tantalising. Yes.
No photograph, no drawing.
So you don't know where it is even?
Well, his survey plan was really good, and we linked it in with the geophysics, and it's this. Yep.
I mean, what do you think this building is, and what's happened to it over time?
The honest answer is we don't know what this building is. It's freestanding. We can't see that it is part of a greater complex, can we? No. At the moment. At the moment.
While the purpose of this particular building remains a mystery,
I want to appreciate what it's like when we get down into it.
it's so well preserved it helps me to imagine how imposing the rest of the stone fortress must have been when it was first built.
Looking at a wall like that and thinking about the difference in the landscape when the Romans arrive and how that must have felt actually for local people.
It must have been a really shocking experience, I think.
There's definitely a brutality to it. I mean, you can stand here and you can admire what the Romans are doing.
You can.
But on the other hand, you're very much faced with that oppressive nature of the Roman Empire.
In another trench right beside the gate of the fort and a road, more buildings have been uncovered, whose purpose is perhaps a little clearer.
And what have you got going on in this trench then? You've got two walls very close to each other. What is it?
Basically, it's two buildings. That's the alley between the two buildings. They're long, narrow buildings, as befit the sort of structures that would be facing onto the main street that runs out of the principal east gate, which is behind me here.
So what are these buildings then, do you know?
Well, narrow frontage onto the road, well placed to actually exploit the passing traffic that's coming through here, and the presence of gaming counters, fine wine, tablewares, all of these might suggest that this is a bar-type environment on the front.
Outside the fort's gates, roadside taverns run by entrepreneurial locals would serve off-duty soldiers food and drink.
Found that.
while useful cottage industries went on out the back.
It's like evidence of glass working.
Oh, like left part, like almost like a glass version of slag.
Yeah, imagine like it all dropping down. Like
Yeah.
And the students are finding plenty of evidence in this largely undisturbed Roman site.
Sort of Samian ware with a pattern there.
It's easy to get swept up in the simple joy of discovering something that hasn't seen the light of day for over 1600 years, like pieces of Samian pottery, which is often marked with a factory stamp.
Samian ware coming up.
And we got a stamp.
So you'll be able to find out where this is from?
Yes.
She's as bad as the students. Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Hey, it's great stuff.
When you go off to tea, I'm going to jump in and do it now. I'm not. I wouldn't do that.
But amongst all these discoveries, there is a star find.
And here we have Izzy
Captured on our diary camera during excavation.
in the final stages of revealing our portable altar up against the wall.
This small altar was probably used by members of this household to pray for good health, wealth, or to fend off evil.
It's a very nicely made altar that seems to be in a small gap in the stones that maybe form part of the floor of the building. How many altars have you found in your archaeological career?
Just this one so far.
A portable altar perhaps shows the transient nature of life for some here on the northern frontier supporting the army. While the military presence is well documented, these new finds help me imagine what the bustling local community here might have looked like at the outermost edge of the Roman Empire.
And if we go back nearly 2,000 years, I'm just inside the fort, and all around me is this vast town. And it's great to draw it, to try to understand what I would have been looking at with the fort in the centre, and a town not just to one side, but around the back of me here, spreading off to the west as well, with the cemetery over there in the distance. And you're just getting a real feel for the Roman landscape up here on Hadrian's Wall, with this new generation of archaeologists cutting their teeth here, and there'll be generations more to come.
The Roman Empire's impact on Britain during almost 4 centuries of occupation can still be seen all across our landscapes. Rock-solid infrastructure left by a vast superpower that shaped much of Europe and beyond.
We get a real feel for the Roman sense of style and aesthetic from archaeology, looking at their buildings, their bathhouses, amphitheatres, opulent villas with beautiful mosaic floors, and from their gorgeous metalwork and their pottery and stone sculptures. But it's incredibly rare to find anything from that period carved in wood, and that's why this next find is so utterly extraordinary.
In York, inside a laboratory that specialises in preserving waterlogged archaeological finds, a special guest from Roman Britain has just arrived.
Here he is.
This wooden sculpture was uncovered during excavations along the HS2 route in Buckinghamshire. As archaeologists dug through the clay containing pieces of Roman pottery, they noticed an unexpected shape emerging.
Amazing, isn't he?
It's fantastic.
Diana Fernandez was on site as a colleague excavated the find.
It was literally just with his bare hands to try to take some mud out of the way. He said, oh, there's something here, there's wood. He was so excited that he could not stop just digging around and saying, it is a woodman, it is a woodman. And no one believed him. Everybody thought, no, this is just a degraded piece of wood. It was literally a carved figurine, and the excitement was big.
Head of conservation at York Archaeology is Ian Panter.
I think it's extremely rare. I mean, this is the first one like this that I've seen in my sort of 40 years in archaeological conservation.
Incredibly, this figure is largely intact, having been buried in waterlogged sediment. Oxygen feeds the fungi that would cause the wood to rot away, but in this lab, they can stop that.
Basically, we put it into a tank with a water-soluble wax in it, leave it there for 6 to 12 months, and then put it into a machine called the freeze dryer, which takes out all the water. And so it's going to be at least a year before the item is dry and stable.
And we're incredibly lucky, as Ian has kindly brought this fragile figurine to the Digging for Britain tent.
I'm looking at it and thinking, is it quite wet enough?
And I'm getting an exclusive look at this amazing find.
Can we lift him out?
We can, yeah.
Before it disappears
Whisk that away.
to Ian's lab for preservation.
Wow.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is stunning, and I can see that actually we've got something really special. I mean, we've got a figure of a man wearing a toga.
That's right, yeah. It looks like within the carving you can see what looks to be a belt going around his waist, as it were.
And these lovely folds of the cloth. We can see how finely this has been carved, and I think the thing which really blows me away, this leg in particular, I mean, that knee, the shape of that knee and the shape of the muscles swelling, it's beautiful and it's very naturalistic.
It is, yeah.
Now, his face has suffered some damage.
Unfortunately, yes, his eyes and nose have gone. But we have got his neck, and it's so smooth there. It's such a beautiful bit of carving there.
Yeah. And there also seem to be some curls of hair.
That's right, yes, yes, yeah.
So do you have any idea of the date of it?
The style of it, just the tunics, the bare legs, everything about it. It's a well-carved figure. I think it's something that's come in with the Romans.
Yeah.
It transpires that there are small shards of pottery found in the same context.
Yeah.
And they're closely dated to about 40 to 70 AD.
Oh, so if it is Roman, it's very, very early Roman.
Well, it's nice to think it as coming in with the invasion fleet.
Yeah. Is there something to see on the other side?
There is. So if we go...
Oh.
It looks like to be running diagonally across his back. It may be a belt or maybe something for a sword or something.
It's been carved all the way round.
That's right, yes.
That is beautiful. Well, if it is Roman, who is it?
Who knows?
It's just amazing. I mean, potentially the figurine of a Roman god that's come over with the legions, protecting the legions, but also a symbol of oppression and terror for the Britons.
Yes, yes.
We'll return to Ian and his extraordinary work at the Preservation Lab in York later in the programme, where a much bigger, even more ancient wooden artefact is under investigation. Beyond the northern boundary of Roman Britain lay a vast, majestic and largely unconquered landscape. This was home to communities who, as far as the Romans were concerned, were uncivilised barbarians. The first history of Britain that we have was not written by Britons at all. It comes from literate Mediterranean civilizations, the Greeks and the Romans. And the Romans in particular tell us that the people who inhabited these islands were utterly barbaric. Now, that is so obviously propaganda, and we'd like to get a more objective view of those ancient societies. And that's precisely what archaeology can offer us. Our next dig is in northern Scotland, 35 miles east of Inverness, in the coastal town of Burghead. Here, a huge promontory juts out into the sea. The modern town was built in the early 1800s, and as it sprawled across these wild cliffs, workers uncovered evidence of an ancient fort, which is now thought to have been a major seat of power for the mysterious tribes called the Picts. Documentary evidence of the Picts is thin on the ground, but their name may have come from a custom of painting their skin. Picti means painted in Latin. The Picts dominated northeast Scotland. From Iron Age tribes grew a Pictish kingdom, thriving in the early medieval period. Now a team from Aberdeen University is here on this headland fortress to learn more about Pictish culture. Dig leader is Gordon Noble.
So up here gives you a fantastic vantage point, so you can see the two forts here. We are standing on the middle rampart, which divides the lower fort from the upper fort.
This is how the site would have looked at its peak in around the 9th century. This reconstruction is based on new archaeology and a survey drawn up in 1793, before half the site was cleared to make way for the new town. With cliffs on 3 sides and huge ramparts all around, protecting 2 groups of dwellings and outhouses, we're seeing the Picts as a far more advanced society than those painted barbarians of some written history.
This must have been one of the key royal centres of the Northern Picts. And simply the resources needed to build, for example, the ramparts, suggest that whoever's living here is drawing on a very large population in order to build the fortifications here.
This year's dig aims to find evidence of how these Picts lived, their customs, lifestyles and diets. The team captured some of their early discoveries on our diary camera.
We've got a mace-headed pin made of animal bone, probably, about 1,200 years old. And yeah, fabulous find for today.
Oh, beauty. That's a coin.
Yes!
Amazing.
What do you think of this?
Well, quite exceptional, because it's actually gold. It's been gilded. It might have been for like some sort of fine kind of silk cloak or something like that, a really, really fine button, but it's so beautiful.
As the team carefully sift through the fine sand, the site's fragile nature is posing problems.
So we're in the upper fort here, in the upper citadel trench, and you can see it's like digging in a sand pit. And basically the whole fort is constructed on top of a series of sand dunes, which is fantastic for things like bone preservation, but has its own challenges in terms of excavation, trying to keep section edges not collapsing all the time. So it's very, very delicate, but it does produce amazing conditions for survival. You can see house floors and layers of occupation. We're just recording all these layers, taking samples for dating, taking samples for ancient DNA to tell us more about the everyday lives of the people who lived in Burghead Fort.
Good bone preservation means any artefacts made from bone remain remarkably intact and may be able to tell us more intimate details about these supposed barbarians, such as how seriously they took their grooming. As the very latest find shows.
I just said at lunchtime we need to find a comb now. And look at that. Fantastic. So it's a fragment of a double-sided comb there, made of bone. And I don't know if there's any known from mainland Scotland. There are very few, certainly, but that's hot off the press.
Oh, that's got decoration on it too, so that's...
Oh, that's lovely.
These carefully made objects suggest a rethink is needed on how history has depicted the Picts. Gordon has brought some of the Burghead Fort discoveries into the Digging for Britain tent so I can have a closer look.
So Gordon, we've got your trench from this year and then the wider context of the headland where your trenches are placed. And I think you can see that as a very obvious place to have a fort. But a lot of the finds that you're getting are domestic.
Exactly. So it shows that this site was much more than a military outpost. And these are some of the objects from the site.
I mean, those bone pins are really beautiful. What would these have been used for, Gordon? Are they for hair or are they for attaching clothes?
In this case, these are very small examples, so they may well have been hair decoration. But this one's got a beautiful little mace head, all these little knobbly bits on the end of the pin.
It's really detailed, isn't it? And that one almost looks like a tiny thistle. Let's get the magnifying glass over.
Yeah. I mean, these are just straight out of the ground.
Ooh, yes. It's something which is it's so functional, and it could be really plain. It doesn't need to be decorated, and yet it's got this, you know, just
just those touches of decoration.
Oh, it's incredible, and it shows the preservation levels we're getting in Burkhead. It's actually very unusual on a mainland Scottish site to get that kind of preservation.
And what's this odd little object?
So it doesn't look like much, but this is actually a hilt guard from a Pictish sword.
What's it made of?
It's made of iron, and it gives you an idea of the shape and form of Pictish swords, which would have been really quite small.
Well, the size of that, it's almost like a large dagger, really, isn't it?
A large dagger, essentially, yeah. Whereas Vikings had much larger swords, entirely different sets of weaponry, different battle tactics. And these were the challenges that the Picts had to face in the 9th and 10th century, in which Burkhead demises as a site.
And finally, Gordon, what are these mysterious-looking objects here, then?
Well, these are copper alloy objects. The one you picked up first is particularly fun. We've got to get this confirmed, but we think it might be a stylus. So for writing on wax tablets and the like.
Ooh, do we expect the Picts to be literate at this time?
Well, this is maybe one of the first pieces of evidence that suggests that the Picts were writing within secular settlements like Burkhead.
Yeah. And, you know, my question there, are the Picts literate? I think I've been infected by that view of the Picts as being slightly backward and barbaric, that view that we basically get from the Romans. But the archaeology is telling us a different story.
Exactly. It's those tiny bits of evidence that really piece together to create this much more sophisticated picture of the Picts and their society.
Yeah, we've underestimated them. Archaeology can bring a better understanding of ancient cultures and civilizations from the long-forgotten past, but it can also help us reconnect with more recent times, such as when a period of seismic change shook the north of Britain and the world, the Industrial Revolution. Our next dig takes us to the heartland of that revolution, just 10 miles from Manchester in Rochdale. As Britain was gearing up for the Industrial Revolution, Rochdale was leading the charge. And I'm walking this historic routeway that holds the key to this town's success. This is Packer Street, where since medieval times, pack horses loaded with goods could rest and merchants do business as they travelled the textile trading routes across the north. Later, industrial traders flocked to Rochdale, and so did their money. By the 1850s, Rochdale had developed into a prosperous mill town, and some of the wealth that it had created through the cloth manufacturing industry was poured into this imposing Victorian Gothic town hall. These decorations celebrate the role of the textile industry in Rochdale's success, and the town hall itself is often claimed to be one of the country's most spectacular municipal buildings. But there's less evidence of the lives of the men and women whose hard work created this wealth.
Oh wow, Reggie, look at that!
This year, though, thanks to a £250 million regeneration project, a community dig beneath the car park is a unique opportunity to investigate the lives of Rochdale's workers during this transformative era.
What's this? That's a bit of tarmac.
Well done, Reg, found a bit of tarmac.
Graham Mottershead is the site manager. Graham, what have you found so far? What levels have you got down to?
Well, Packer Street is interesting because the wool merchants would have had their houses and their warehouses along here on Packer Street.
Right.
And we think that the remains of some of these houses is what we're digging up here.
The team are unearthing brick walls from these workers' houses that are so well preserved they look like they might have been made last year. Do you know when this wall was built?
I think that's late 18th century. From the bricks, and particularly with the mortar in it, you can actually see some lime mortar down at the bottom. So this would have been maybe the 1770s, 1780s.
It's kind of taking us back to the beginning of the industrial age in Rochdale.
Absolutely, yes. It's right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. This would have been built. You know, there's row of houses here.
As industry exploded, the population and demand for housing did as well. So these houses were transformed, and not for the better.
So if I step up here, what am I in now?
These don't look quite as well built as that.
No.
That's what you've got here. You've had these formerly quite nice, affluent houses. The houses get broken up into smaller houses to accommodate a lot more people, because you've got a lot more mills, you've got a lot more factories, so you need the houses for the people that are coming in to work there. So they just start to decline. And I think the things we're looking at here, like this floor, is a bit of a mishmash of different types of bricks, stones. There's even the odd bit of a cobble.
Just using whatever you've got to hand, isn't it, to make that floor surface?
Yeah, exactly.
There are features outside each of these small houses that have become accidental time capsules.
Here we've got outside privies.
These little square brick-built chambers.
Yes.
That's what they are.
Yeah, yeah.
As outdoor toilets like this fell out of use, they became convenient rubbish dumps for residents.
There's probably more finds come out of these sort of 3 little chambers than have come out of almost anywhere else on the site. Things like drinks bottles, plates, teacups, you name it, just coming out of these. Combined with everything else, it gives us a real picture of what life was like.
You can't argue with this.
No.
This is kind of this is like everyday life, what people were doing, it's just there.
The thing I love about local community digs like this one is how they give archaeologists of all ages the chance to get excited about the past.
We don't know what it is.
Oh, do you know what? I think that is the bottom of a handle of a pot.
Could be like a handle of a teacup. Yeah,
It could be, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, to think about the different ways that people lived in the past and how their houses might have been different from our houses.
Pottery, when it's thicker, it means it's more cheap.
Yeah.
When it's like quite thin, it means it's more expensive and
Yeah.
more posh.
What do you think about archaeology, though? I mean, I know you've only been doing it for a few hours, but would you like to do it as a job?
Yes. Yeah.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yes.
Also here on their first dig are Sandra and Julie.
Do you think it's kind of connecting you with local history in Rochdale then?
Yeah.
I mean, you're from Rochdale.
My granddad and my grandma used to work in the mills around here, so to me it's a bit of a connection.
Yeah.
I've lost them all now, so it's a bit like, wow. But yeah, it's just lovely sort of having a bit of knowledge that you think you know everything, and actually you know nothing.
Yeah.
Until you start going underneath.
Yeah.
With the dawn of the steam age and the arrival of railways in the mid-1800s, the residents of Rochdale could enjoy better connections to what was happening right across the country.
Jenny, Yvonne, somebody said you found something really exciting.
Yeah.
What is it?
It is a clay pipe. I'll show you.
You found lots of clay pipes.
Oh
though.
yeah, I mean there's tons of them in here, but this was really beautiful. Yeah, I really suspected dinosaur.
Oh, that is amazing.
Clay tobacco pipes were commonplace before ready-made cigarettes arrived at the end of the 19th century, but many were featureless and disposable.
This is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not seen anything like it so far.
I love that. Is it a well-known design?
Well, in 1851 they had like the Great Exhibition down in London, and like the design of this dinosaur looks a lot like what they thought dinosaurs were when they did that. So
it does look a bit like the Crystal Palace dinosaurs. I wonder if it's a souvenir then that somebody's brought back from London.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting if it was.
I think that's got to be the star find of the day, if not the week, if not the month.
As well as faster travel and big business, the Industrial Revolution also fostered an entrepreneurial spirit in ordinary workers. Archaeologist Ashley Brogan has gathered evidence of this, found amongst this crowded terrace.
So that says S. Casson, Rochdale.
Yes. So we actually know exactly who that is. So that's Samuel Casson, and he lived in 1851 at 13 Packer Street.
Really?
And he was about 20 years old at the time, and his mother was a ginger beer maker, and he took up the business as well. So that's directly come from his house where he's making ginger beer.
So it would have been in his house that he was
in the yards at the
it.
back, which is exactly what we've got on site.
Yeah. Isn't that lovely to find a complete bottle like that? So that says J. Casson's Superior Pub.
Yeah.
That one says. Not any old ginger bear.
No. Jay was James Casson, and that was his dad. His dad was originally a woolen worker, and they would have been quite poor on this street, so the mum took up ginger beer making to sort of help with, you know, the household income.
Yeah.
And then they seemed to go down that route. And by the 1870s, you know, they'd moved out and they had like 9 employees, and it was really growing business.
Really?
And we've actually had volunteers on site remember drinking Casson's drinks, you know, years ago, decades ago. So yeah, it's really closely linked with Rochdale and the community here as well.
Oh, that's such a fantastic story, and how, you know, lovely to kind of see the emergence of this business that then flourished.
Exactly, yeah.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah.
This is definitely something.
This dig is helping the community here to remember the small parts that Rochdale played in that huge revolution that changed the world. But it's also revealing the power of archaeology, I think especially for the children, that they can learn about history at school, they can read about it in books, but here it becomes real, it becomes tangible, something they can touch, something they can hold in their hands. The Industrial Revolution brought with it many innovations and scientific advancements, but it also accentuated the gap between the rich and the poor, and nowhere perhaps as obviously as in Ireland. Part of the United Kingdom since 1801, Ireland's population was booming and depended on a staple high-yield crop, potatoes. And then in 1845, a deadly fungus, Phytophthora infestans, swept through and wiped out a third of the potato harvest, plunging Ireland into a state of famine. The scale of the suffering was horrific, and over 1 million people died. But it's the way the British government chose to help those in need that is the story of this dig. We travelled to what is now Northern Ireland, just a few miles outside the county town of Enniskillen. This dig is an attempt to uncover evidence of work done as part of an 1846 government welfare scheme that resulted in the building of new roads, which later became known as the famine roads. Eileen Murphy of Queen's University Belfast is the co-director of this pioneering dig.
To the best of our knowledge, this is the first time a famine road has been excavated on the island. And I think it's because they're not formally recognised as monuments. This is one of the sort of the largest stretches of roads. It goes for about 1.5 miles. And we decided this would be a wonderful place to have a community-based excavation.
Building these roads was a seemingly misguided attempt by the British government to support the starving population by offering employment where hard labour would earn them a meagre wage.
People died on the roads because of the cold weather conditions. So it was counterproductive, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the fact that they were starving didn't help either.
The dig aims to find evidence of the lives of the starving workers who built this road. But as they uncover the thick clay foundations, the team get an insight into the hardship endured.
To make a road in a landscape like that, you would need a lot of clay to kind of raise up your road. So we think that's what they did. They brought in the clay and they built it up into this platform.
We've been digging this clay out the last couple of days and it's been hard enough. Doing it in the middle of winter when you're starved half to death.
And it's pure clay.
And it's pure clay and you're rife for fever.
We were expecting to find at the top a surface with lots of nice compact stones, but when we dug down, it soon became apparent what we found is the enabling works, the evidence of what came before, you know, the actual final road was put down on top of the surface. So we think basically the road wasn't completed.
The archaeology is revealing the heartbreaking truth about this scheme. Many of these roads were left unfinished and unusable by those too hungry to build them.
You know the expression money for old rope? Yeah. OK, so that comes from the workhouse where women were actually tasked to unwind rope.
Catherine Scott from Fermanagh County Museum is on site to help give the dig context.
So the famine road and the system of famine roads, they are literally directionless, you know, and they go nowhere. If you look at the map at the time, there was a road running parallel to this very road. So they have no real function.
Despite the obvious futility of asking the starving to build roads to nowhere, it's a largely forgotten part of Irish famine history.
You know, I only live about 10 miles from here and I did not know there was a famine road here.
People talk about the silence. That was very loud because nobody spoke about the famine, nobody spoke about their experience and what happened to them and their families. But we know, for example, in County Fermanagh, we lose just over 25% of the population. That's huge.
The decisions that led to this scheme were being made 400 miles away in London. As the scale of the potato crop failure became clear and famine loomed, solutions were debated in Parliament. Historian Onyeka Nubia is in London to investigate.
So I want to know what led to that disaster of the famine road. I want to know what the policy was that could mean that human beings would suffer for the sake of a philosophy.
I've come to Lincoln's Inn, where the library holds a comprehensive set of Hansard. These are the official records of parliamentary debates from 1803 onwards. This edition from 1846, at the height of the famine, details a speech by the famous Irish MP and activist, Daniel O'Connell.
The title is Famine and Disease in Ireland. It was certain that there was a fearful prospect of a most calamitous season before the people of Ireland. And then he goes on, but the condition of the people, especially of the agricultural population, these are the ordinary people, all accounts agreed in describing them as in a state of actual starvation. Daniel O'Connell is one of the few Catholic Irish MPs. He's trying to prevent the extermination of a people, his people, and he's imploring the British government that has control of Ireland to do something about it.
O'Connell seeks aid for famine victims, but the government and the opposition are opposed to this. Their philosophy is to reject all requests for handouts. Simple charity was out of the question, so Robert Peel suggested a compromise.
On March the 9th, 1846, right in the midst of the what we now call the Irish potato famine. So this is Robert Peel, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and its empire, and we see what he has to say. In justice to the poorer classes, to those classes who are in a state of destitution, it would, I think, be infinitely more agreeable to their feelings that they should be enabled to earn their subsistence by honest labour than by any other mode. What a remarkable thing to say. He's saying that he knows the working people in Ireland. He knows their feelings. And he believes that their feelings are that they want to work for a living. And he's also saying, from a philosophical perspective, that if relief is given to those ordinary people without working, that is worse, psychologically, socially, culturally, politically, than that population dying from starvation. These ideas, of course, weren't new to the Victorians, but the way that they were implemented, getting the poor to work, on roads to nowhere, on activities that would not produce tangible, beneficial results, simply to enforce a philosophical point and to make a statement that if you were poor, you had to work your way out of your poverty. It is utterly deplorable.
Back in Northern Ireland at the Famine Road dig, Eileen's team assess their findings.
Normally on an archaeological excavation, you expect to find something, you know, because we go after, you know, the discarded refuse, the stuff that people break and throw away, and that's priceless to us. But, you know, in my mind, before we started off, I thought you might find a little bit of broken crockery or maybe bits of clay pipes, but we found nothing.
Col Murphy is dig co-director.
And I suppose in some ways we shouldn't be too surprised, because the people who would be coming here wouldn't have had anything to bring with them. The truth of the matter is, from the historic accounts, most of them have sold off their good clothes as well, so they don't even have coats. They're in absolute poverty.
More than 2 million people died or emigrated as a result of famine, its effects reverberating for decades to come. And this dig's empty finds tray somehow speaks volumes about the hardship endured during that dark period of Irish history.
Archaeologists can reconstruct ancient landscapes, sometimes based on very subtle traces. Whole villages just from their foundations, wooden buildings just from the holes in the ground where posts once stood. But occasionally there's a quirk of preservation, which means that something that shouldn't have survived does. And that can be a real gift and provide us with an incredible revelation.
We return to York and Ian Panter's specialist preservation lab.
This must be one of the biggest things you've got here at the moment.
It's one of the biggest things, yes, and one of the heaviest.
In this tank, a huge chunk of an ancient tree trunk has been kept in underwater storage since it was first discovered in 2018.
Wow. It's a bit of a beast, isn't it? I mean,
it is, isn't it?
Huge.
This is a Bronze Age coffin, discovered along with human remains and an axe during landscaping at a golf club near Grimsby. Archaeologist Hugh Wilmot was working with students nearby and was called in to oversee the recovery of the coffin.
Well, I mean, it's just amazing to see it out of the water, all cleaned up. It's kind of fresh now, it's not covered in mud.
We're beginning to see some of the tool marks, the tools that we used to make it.
It's really a near unique object.
Yeah, it is.
Today, for the first time, Hugh is seeing the wood cleaned of the waterlogged mud that had prevented it from decomposing ever since it was buried around 4,000 years ago.
You can see the end of it here, which you can see it's clearly made out of a single piece of wood, a hollowed out tree trunk. And you can see the wood grain in there and the sort of the rays of the oak. And then they've hollowed it out, they've gouged out the coffin. So it's made from a single piece of oak. And that's really quite special. And you can see some of the tool marks from where they've been scooping out the contents to sort of make the container. So it's really quite an impressive piece of woodworking, not just the sort of size of it, but the amount of effort that's gone into creating it.
The wooden coffin was just one part of an elaborate burial covered over with a mound of gravel. The archaeologists also recovered evidence that inside the coffin, the dead body had been carefully laid out on a soft bed of moss and leaves.
I think this is clearly a special burial. Not everyone's going to be afforded this kind of burial right. It would take a lot of effort from the community just to even construct the coffin and then put the mound over the top. So we're looking at somebody who is obviously clearly very important to this society.
The man in this grave was buried with a beautiful, decorative axe, complete with its handle, one of only 12 to survive intact in the country. It's another clue as to who this person was in life.
It's very small, and it's probably a more symbolic thing. The head of the axe is kind of made from a limestone that actually has fossilised coral in it, so it seems to be deliberately chosen as a decorative stone. So perhaps it acted as some symbol of the authority of the person buried in the coffin.
It's expected to take up to 2 years to fully preserve and protect the coffin from harmful fungi, all part of a long and unexpected archaeological journey.
Log coffins are very, very rare. I mean, this is kind of once in a career kind of thing. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I'm not going to likely see one again. So it's really a sort of a bit of a highlight for me.
Archaeology helps us learn how our towns and cities have changed throughout the centuries. And luckily for archaeologists, that change is an ongoing process.
Redevelopment in our cities often involves clearing cemeteries, and archaeological excavation represents the most respectful way of treating those human remains, whilst allowing us to find out more about the people themselves. We've had some fantastic burial archaeology from the southeast and the Midlands recently, and now archaeologists in the north are getting the same opportunity.
Our final dig takes us back to Scotland, where a few miles from Edinburgh lies the port town of Leith. Here, a new tram line linking Leith to the city centre of Edinburgh is under construction. The route follows the main roads, which have to be excavated, but one stretch of road was built over part of a huge medieval burial ground. For the last decade, a team from Guard Archaeology have been excavating and analysing hundreds of graves.
You've got one up there, one here, and those are...
John Lawson is the city archaeologist.
What we have is a general population of Leith during the period of 13 to 1650. All ages, all social classes, from people buried in simple shrouded burials right the way through to coffin graves from the 14th century.
The skeletons are revealing much about the health of Leith's residents and how long they lived during a 400-year period when life was often short and hard.
Likely 10 to 12 years of age.
I mean, we're not looking at an elite burial ground. We're looking at our society that captures everything from the poorest right the way through to your sort of richer merchants and everything in between.
And I've just found here a small copper alloy shroud pin.
The team have recorded their discoveries on our diary cameras.
With children, they have a lot more teeth that are just sitting up in the gums. So what we've got here is a juvenile.
They've got no teeth on the lower mandible. The tooth sockets are completely healed, so that's called alveolar resorption. So they lost all their teeth during life and lived for quite a while without any.
The excavation is thorough. Every scrap of coffin wood, loose nail and fragment of surviving textile is recorded, providing detailed insights into burial practices as they evolved in Leith.
And all of these so far have had the hands behind the pelvis. Okay. This one, and this one. And the rest that are true east-west have had the hands like this.
It's been a shroud burial, so it's been buried in a cloth, and it's normally one shroud pin. But so far on this burial, there's been 7 shroud pins.
This part of the burial ground seems to have gone out of use around 1650. In the more prosperous centuries that followed, many of the roads and houses of Leith were built. Now the team are finding evidence that some of this burial ground stood in the way of progress once before.
There's a massive Victorian sewer which serves most of Leith, running straight the way down the site here. Given what we found, we estimate they probably removed about maybe 300 to 400 burials. We know they did it, but we don't have the records.
There may not be any official documents, but the team have uncovered evidence of large-scale relocation of skeletons.
What we have here is a charnel pit, which is basically a man-made pit with human remains that have been put in. The charnel classes as human remains that are no longer associated with a full skeleton. We reckon there's more than 20 individuals in this set place. The reason why they've come in could be from when the workers may have found these remains and decided to put them behind the new wall to keep them in sacred ground, hollow ground.
Faced with archaeological evidence like this, it's hard to learn much about how these people lived and died. But complete skeletons can tell us much more, like this one, a person who had clearly been the victim of a traumatic event.
So it looks like they've been hit with something during life. This blow hasn't killed them, and we can tell that because of this rounded edge here. So this is bone regrowth after this injury, and it kind of looks like, because we've got such a rounded edge on it, it looks like they've gone in, so doctors have gone in to remove the bone and to clean up this edge, and that's caused it to regrow in this sort of circular pattern.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it?
It's really interesting.
Just a story about how this person would have survived and the medical care that they had, and we just don't think about it. What, maybe in the 1300s or 1400s?
Yeah.
John has brought that fascinating skeleton to the Digging for Britain tent, so I can get a closer look at the injury.
John, thank you for bringing in one of the skeletons from this dig. How many skeletons, how many burials did you uncover in the end?
385. The total count may go up, so we're just through that post-excavation process at the moment.
And we're seeing one of these Leiths here. So tell me about this skeleton then, John.
She's probably in her mid-20s, and she obviously had a very large bumped head. You can actually see evidence of blunt force trauma with the sort of cracks coming up, 2 lines coming up the side of her skull here.
And over here. Looking at this, it's more likely to have been the result of a violent injury. And we certainly know it wasn't a murder because she survived this, and she's survived this by at least a couple of years because this is all healed.
It's amazing, and to survive that long with all the injuries and without modern medicine.
And you've had reconstructions done, haven't you?
We have, yeah.
With a skull in such good condition, a reconstruction artist can put muscles, skin and hair back, and we can see the face of this young woman before she was horrifically injured.
We're looking at somebody who was alive in the 15th century.
Yeah, probably the middle part of the 15th century.
And I think it's really important to see faces like this because, you know, I look at a lot of skeletons and a lot of skulls and you see them as individuals, but you're actually seeing them as people when you do the reconstruction. Yeah. And it literally puts flesh on the bones and it allows you to think about that human experience of going through that horrific injury.
And I think that's part of that. Our project is trying to put us today back into the footsteps of the people in the past to show they're not different. They are ourselves, you know.
I mean, that's why we do archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah.
We dig for the gods that leave no bones for ships unseen.
The challenges this year have been unprecedented, and yet it's been such a memorable journey.
This is Richmond Castle, this beach in West Wales. I love the Mendip Hills.
The beauty of our landscape, the variety of digs.
Oh, look at this.
And the wealth of finds.
Absolutely lovely.
Has been breathtaking.
Some really exciting evidence has just emerged.
Found a couple brooches, I found a ring.
Well spotted. Keep going.
What on earth is that?
Brain-eating snails.
Bizarre. Look. I can't believe you found that on your first day digging. It almost looks like a hand.
Wow.
That's not medieval. Could it be Roman? It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? What a mystery to have solved.
Oh my goodness.
I'm quite emotional seeing this. It's just amazing.
I can't wait to do it all again.